morning, everybody. This is Heather Beasley from Betsy, and I am here today with the playwright of the Nina Variations, Steven Dietz. You may remember that he's also the playwright of Bloomsday, and which many of you might have had the chance to see last season, and we are thrilled for the opportunity to say hello and get a chance to talk with him today. Good morning.
Hello again. Good morning. I'm delighted that this is happening, and I'm thrilled to have this play at Betsy. That's fantastic.
So tell us a little bit about what got you interested in Chekhov's The Seagull in the first place.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think, Chekhov in so many ways is sort of the father of us all of contemporary playwriting. I am certainly no Chekhov expert, etc. But boy, years 15 or maybe 20 years ago, I was approached about writing a new adaptation of The Seagull, Chekhov's first major play. And then that project fell through for various reasons. But in researching this new adaptation that I was going to try, I just kept coming back to the final scene between the two young lovers named Nina and Treplev. And it has the famous Nina speech, "I am a seagull" in it. And it is this perfect threshold moment between two lovers who are going to, spoiler alert, who are going to pass and miss each other. And so rather than writing the adaptation, that scene stuck in my head. And on a writing break a few years later, I thought, I just want to keep writing variations of that last scene. And so I wrote one, and then I tried to write one from a different angle. And before I knew it, I had 43 variations on just that final scene.
So out of the many, many variations, given that there's so many ways their story has gone, do you have like a favorite or a favorite thread?
Oh, I will. I don't know. That's a very good question. I will say that this is a favorite play of mine. We're not supposed to have favorite plays, but this is a quiet little play that snuck up on me. I have plays that I endeavor for 15 or 20 years that I want to write that Vincent van Gogh play, or I want to write that whatever play, and usually I do, just because I'm stubborn and persistent. But this was a play that snuck up on me. Each of the characters have moments or speeches where I'm riffing off bits and pieces of the original Chekhov, and it is also it's a play that gets younger and younger as I get older and older. Meaning, so now when the characters pause and they just simply say the word youth, and that word just hangs in the air. That word hangs in the air differently to me now, at age almost 62, than it did, I don't know, 20 some years ago. But it's a favorite play of mine, and it also lends itself, I think, to directors and actors finding their particular way into it in terms of the way it's structured.
Do you think that's partially a result of being a Chekhov play and his gift for leaving space for the people he was working with?
Yes, I think absolutely leaving space, and contradiction. The great characters in dramatic literature are not consistent. They are contradictory, Hamlet being the foremost among them. But the characters in Chekhov are absolutely contradictory. They want one thing one moment, they want another thing another moment. Doesn't that sound like human beings? And the wild thing to me about something like The Seagull, even more so than the other three major plays, it's an epic story. It's not a complicated story. I think in one of the very first variations in the Nina Variations, you certainly don't have to know the play to enjoy the Nina Variations. And I think in one of the first variations, I just have a character tell you, here's what you need to know about the seagull. But the play itself, the seagull itself, is this epic story. But Chekhov has this mastery of delivering all these events and this epic story in this very intimate way, and make it feel like you are eavesdropping on the conversations that our mother warned us, don't go in that room and listen to those people. And all you do in Chekhov is go in the room you're not supposed to go into. And hopefully the Nina Variations will give the audience that kind of quickening.
So Bloomsday also played with time and with lost opportunities for love. How do you like to work with time as a storytelling tool?
Oh boy, I could bore you with a whole semester's worth of class on that. It is interesting as a railroader's kid. When I growing up, time was the fundamental. It was the fifth member of our family, and so it is a major thing I think about when I make stories. And if people remember Bloomsday, Robert, the older man, was going back to try to recapture a moment, and the theater lets us do that, and the theater lets us play with that moment. In some ways, the overlap of that with the Nina Variations is that this is a threshold moment for a young writer who's in love with a woman named Nina, and for this young actress who's literally, to use the imagery from the play, about to take flight. Her life is about to take flight. And that threshold moment happens once in Chekhov's play, but in the Nina Variations, because I get to play with time, it happens 43 times. And I wish life was like that, right? That thing that you think of the perfect thing to say when you get out to your car and the moment is gone and you want to rush back in and say, no, this is what I meant to say. The Nina Variations is hopefully an entertaining, but also moving exploration of what if we got many chances to try to get it right.
I feel like the American theater as a whole is in one of those threshold moments.
Yeah.
Because we're paused right now and we have a chance perhaps to do a lot of things differently and better.
Yeah.
What are some of the changes that you hope for?
I hope we realize how much we need to gather. It has always been our fundamental strength that makes us different from all other forms of media, that we are able to gather, that we are proximate. It's why the virus has been so devastating to theaters. It's why the terrific project like this bubbles up to at least keep sharing stories and to keep audiences engaged. But I personally don't want to ever take for granted anymore that I'm sitting in a room with 50 people or 70 people or 200 people, and I'm watching, the great professional actors tell a story. That sounds really general, but I will say over the course of my career, I've seen us lose sight of that. I've seen us chase things that other art forms are doing. But the fundamental thing that we can do is gather people. I also hope that the theaters have not been allowed to go fallow. You know this very well. And I think the theaters that I know well have been heroic in generating outreach and content and engagement. Writers, on the other hand, there can be an advantage to going fallow. The fertile field is a field that has gone fallow for a year or two, and you know when to plant. So I can't say this to my friends who run theaters, because you do not have that option, but I am curious to see, after a fallow period, which should inform and engage us as writers, I'm probably as curious as you to see what plays come out of that. I have plays on the shelf here next to me that are bubbling up and will turn into something or not. But this has been a gut check for a lot of us. And I think also, as terrible as it is, a truly rare opportunity to restart.
Do you mind taking a couple moments to tell us about your path into playwriting and how you got here?
Oh, I don't mind at all. I don't know how interesting it is. I did not know anything about playwriting in college. I did not really know there were living playwrights. I went to UNC. I was in a terrific theater program up in Greeley. But then after college, I went into an old church to use the telephone during a snowstorm in Minneapolis. And that old church was actually not a church anymore. It was a place called the Playwrights Center. And August Wilson had just arrived, and Lee Blessing and Marisha Chamberlain and Barbara Field. And so I thought, well, I don't know anything about writing. I was interested in directing. So I with all the hubris of youth, I lied my way into directing readings of new plays, workshops of new plays. This would be like 1980, 1981. And that's how I spent 11 years, essentially working as a director on these plays. But that was my grad school. I was surrounded by some of the greatest writers of that era, or any era, And working with them, I got interested in doing writing of my own, and then my own plays started happening. And so now much more of my time is spent writing, but it was because then directing, but it was because I was surrounded by this sort of hothouse atmosphere. It certainly was never anything I thought one could do with their life. I mean, I was going to play second base for the San Francisco Giants, and that plan just did not work. So there were no such thing as the Colorado Rockies when I was growing up. So I think I leaned forward. I never took playwriting classes, but like I said, that work with these writers and watching them do the work, not watching them have the ideas, watching them do the work, as you know, that taught me enough craft to sustain me. But my education is hopefully ongoing.
Circling back to something you said a little bit earlier about theater chasing other art forms.
Yeah.
And more filmic, more television influence than perhaps it was 30, 40 years ago. Yeah. When you teach playwriting now, how do you advise people, how do you advise your students to work for the stage? What makes something uniquely theatrical to you?
Well, to capture the present moment is very hard. So I teach story, I teach motion, I teach the use of time. But the simple thing to say and the difficult thing to learn is that we are a conjuring medium and not a depiction medium. So film and television, whatever, something needs to happen, they can depict that. The theater, rooted in storytelling and poetry, is a conjuring medium. So I can say to you, that was the summer in Spain that I will never forget. And I don't know what that is, Heather, but I'm going to plant something in your mind, and I'm going to build off what I'm conjuring in your mind, as opposed to if I'm writing that as a screenplay, I write exterior locale, a street in Barcelona. That difference between depiction and conjuring, boy, I can say that the first day of my class, and it sounds so easy, and then we get deeply into the semester. And as I say to them, I get 40 years into writing plays. I'm still after that, that difference, but our storytelling is placed in, if I'm telling you a story in the theater, I'm placing that story in your mind. If I'm telling a story to you in film and television, I'm placing that story in your eyes and ears. And so that's why I think stories that are, that can't actually happen. Bloomsday, on one level, can't actually happen in an objective, realistic way. That's what makes it a play, because I'm asking you to conjure, what if it could actually happen? And the weird thing is that in the theater, that's not called science fiction, that's called theater.
If you had to go back to sort of what you've been told is classical structure for a play, your plays have so many innovative structures, having read quite a few of them, and a lot of the times it has to do with how you're dealing with time.
Yeah.
But what kind of innovations do you see in the field that excite you as far as moving beyond sort of a linear hero's journey approach to storytelling?
Well, and I also, that's a great question. The story making is probably the fundamental thing that I teach, and what that I don't try to dismiss the hero's journey or that because the story and the play are two different things. So generating everyone in Chekhov's The Seagull is in a story. The play is the selection of those individual story moments that get stacked on top of a singular moment in time, and that makes the play. I think I don't teach any sort of templates to students. Many students want to learn them. When I've taught film and TV writing, of course, I'll teach those templates. That's a necessary thing in film and TV. I think the harder thing in the theater is the audience has the same expectations. They expect to be delighted. They expect to be surprised. They expect to be moved, and they hope that something at the end is both surprising and inevitable. But the theater offers us a lot of different ways to get there. Some of those innovations, I think, are not putting the play in a box that looks like a play, but going all in taking the play to the story. I don't think this play situates in these people's house. I think this story goes back in time to this moment, then it goes forward to that final night at the cabin, and then it winds back to me reading this book. Whatever that is, in some ways, that's a classical structure also, but it's a structure much more out of, you know, the Iliad or the Odyssey, which is letting the work chase the story, rather than taking the story and putting it into a container that looks like a play. Stories are all innovations. And even God bless the students that say, I don't want to write just a typical 2-act play. I know what they mean. I respect that. I was that person once, but I also feel like it's my job, Heather, to say to them, it's harder than you think to do that, right? It's like, well, that's just like, I don't want to write just a silly comedy. Do you know how hard it is to write a good comedy or to write a 2-character play? So I teach tools and not rules, right? So these are the tools you need if you want to do a more classical structure. These are the tools you need if you want to invent one of your own. And I just realized I've been remiss in saying I'm terrified of the 2-character play. And I've only written, I think, a couple of them out of my 40-some plays. I wrote a play called Lonely Planet, but then I swore I'd never do it again because I thought 2-character plays are so, I just find them difficult. And so I think that also factors into the Nina Variations, in which I was trying to not have that 3rd, 4th, 5th character come in and complicate or solve things, and instead make those same 2 people go through it over and over again. And to give the option to theaters to say, I do this with 2 characters, but I want to use multiple actors. And I've gotten to see that over the years with this play, and that's been really thrilling.
Who are some theater companies and theater artists that excite you, that you're excited to see what they're going to do next?
Oh gosh, I do a lot of work with American Blues Theater in Chicago. With the theaters in Seattle have been my theatrical home. Act Theater, Seattle Rep, Seattle Public Theater. I'm always interested in what, you know, Steppenwolf is going to do next, or Victory Gardens in Chicago. I like to watch the theaters. Theaters ask artists to reinvent themselves, and I think rightly, because this is a provocative profession. This profession is designed to humble us, and it does that regularly. And so I think artists are asked and challenged to reinvent themselves. I'm excited by the theaters that seek to reinvent themselves and not give up something that they've done that's been successful, and to bring that audience along, but reinvent themselves as something else. The Contemporary American Theater Festival in Shepherdstown, where the Nina Variations premiered, which is now a substantial theater, was a tiny little theater when they did the Nina Variations. But new plays serve as one way for a theater to keep reinventing itself. That's why a production of a brand new play is thrilling, but also I don't think the Nina Variations I don't know if it's ever been done in Denver. I don't think it's ever been done in Boulder. So I feel like I am getting this premiere of my play X number of years after I wrote it, at a theater company, BETC, that I admire. And we get to see how it changes us. With all the other challenges in this art form, what a lucky thing. What a fundamentally lucky thing.
I'm cheating a little bit, but I know your wife is playwright Allison Gregory.
Yes, she's not here right now, or I'd have her step into the screen.
And so I know Nina, in part, is a story about a woman who's been in love with 2 writers. And Nina also tries to write herself in the play.
Yeah.
So as a writer, who lives
Yeah.
with a writer. What
Yeah.
advice do you have for people who are in relationship with writers? How do you
Oh
do
my
that?
gosh. My advice, if you're in a relationship with a writer, is be married to my wife. I think that's my advice. And she may not say the equivalent about me. We are, I think, pretty fantastic teammates on this issue. She was an actress and a dancer for a very long time, so she came to writing a little bit later in her career. So she's had enormous success with her plays. Not enough. I think more of her plays should be done. To everyone that's listening, but we read each other's first drafts. We sit in my studio here. We have long, terrific note sessions on plays. We host a lot of readings at our house in Seattle. I think the thing we've learned is when the other person doesn't want to talk about their work while we're making dinner or something, just let that go. And I think that is probably the advantage of that we understand that writing is a pact you make with solitude. Marriage is not. But writing is a pact you make with solitude. And we are, even when our kids were little, our kids are 20 years old now, but we were I won't say always successful, but we were determined to protect each other's solitude. And that would be my advice. She, when I come in the studio and close the door, she'll protect my solitude. When I see the door closed in her studio, or I see her ostensibly eating lunch, but I can tell she's thinking about her revision of some play that's due by 5 p.m. Try to leave that space, and then, tuck your shirt in on opening night and stand by your playwright wife. And as I think I'm more proud when she has an opening than when I have openings of my own, because I objectively can see how hard she's worked.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time today to talk with me and about all things Nina and all things writing, and we can't wait to get going on your show.
I'm delighted. Thank you all, everyone at BETC and the actors and everyone that's going to work on it. Thank you for doing that. I mean, it really means the world to me to have this play I love come back to essentially where I grew up. So thank you.
And we'll see you soon.
Thanks. Bye.